1 second. All right, we are recording. So thank you all again for joining us today. Today's session is called All About Fellowships. This is presented as part of Research Week, although we are doing so outside of the typical parameters. And today's session is presented jointly by my office, the Office of Scholar Development and Fellowship Advising, and also by the Rutgers-Camden Research Office. Okay. So we're going to introduce ourselves in just a moment. So here's a brief overview of what you can expect from us today. We're going to go through our introductions. We're going to talk a little bit about fellowships and what that means and kind of what that process looks like. We're also going to present some fellowship opportunities that are really good fits for our students here at Rutgers-Camden, as well as our alumni. And then the most fun part of all, and what you're all here for, is to hear some student stories and alumni stories. So you will hear from a panel of 5 individuals, including 2 current students, 1 undergraduate and 1 graduate student, and 3 alums, all of who have been through the application process here at Rutgers-Camden, who've worked with both the Office of Scholar Development and Fellowship Advising and the Research Office. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So I mentioned we'll do our introduction. So my name is Laura Collins. I am the director for the Office of Scholar Development and Fellowship Advising. And if you are interested in finding us, you can do so within the class suite, which is located on the 2nd floor of Armitage Hall, sometimes also known as the Learning Center. To the left of the elevators on the 2nd floor. And then I'll turn it over to my colleague, Jeannie.
And I'm Jeannie Garment. I'm the Director of Research Development here at the Research Office of Rutgers-Camden. My office is on the 3rd floor of Armitage, all the way in the back. So we'll have to arrange me guiding you.
It's true, it's a maze. Perfect. All right. All right, so then we're going to dig in. So fellowships, awards, grants, oh my. And I say that because it is very common for students to say, okay, wait, what exactly is a fellowship? So these are awards, and that language, fellowships, grants, awards, is often used interchangeably, and that is perfectly okay. You will see awards that are listed as fellowships, scholarships, grants, all with the same terminology, and oftentimes that's okay to use them intermixed. What's most important is these are external funded opportunities that are going to pay for some sort of an experience. The key takeaway when you're thinking about these opportunities is that they are an investment in your future. That's why we've bolded that terminology down at the bottom. So one of the things that we really like to stress to folks that are thinking about these is that, like, when you're thinking about scholarships as you're an incoming student, maybe to, either your undergrad or graduate experience, oftentimes they are looking at your past record of achievements. And while these awards sometimes are going to be considering those variables as well, these really take into account your ability to tell a strong narrative about why you're a good fit for the opportunity of that award and why you have a compelling story about your fit moving forward. I'm going to ask my colleague Jeannie to talk a little bit about the different types of fellowships that are available.
So fellowships can fall into different buckets. There are federal fellowships, which are often larger and multi-year, and they usually will fund a stipend, your tuition and fees, and also a research component of your project. So what you're going to be proposing is something like a research project to be able to apply for these fellowships. There are also foundations and associations, and these can vary. They can be large, long-term research-related fellowships, or they can be shorter-term fellowships. They can be things that are like travel to an archive to be able to conduct some research on site. So there's a lot of variability for that within the foundations. And then there's also industry fellowships, which are generally meant for you to gain actual experience in the field. They're usually targeted towards specific sort of research areas or areas of interest that are specific to the industry, and you'll be basically applying to fill sort of a role within that industry partner.
All right. So probably one of the most common questions that both Jeannie and I get is, who are these opportunities for? And we can't stress enough that these are for absolutely everyone. So one of the things I'm commonly caught saying is that we have an opportunity for everyone at every age and stage. So whether you are a first year undergraduate student, someone at any level of undergraduate study, graduate students, or even alumni, we usually can find an award that matches up with you and your interests. So we have a process by which we will ask you, I don't know, a dozen questions or more, so that we can try to learn a little bit more about what you are trying to achieve, what goals you have, and how we can help you figure out what your fit is. And then we match you up with awards that match those interests and those goals that you have. So these are just some examples of the things that might be a good match for you based on the awards that we commonly work with, but really the landscape of what's available under the broad categorization of fellowships is plentiful. So why might you consider applying for a fellowship? I think you're going to hear plenty of reasons in the why category from our panel of students and alumni. These are just some ideas about why you might want to do that. I think the process of applying itself is so valuable. Our students, our applicants get so much out of going through that process of writing, clarifying their goals, really thinking about their own why, about the things that they want to pursue in the future, and really sometimes the things that they do not, the things that they thought that they were interested in kind of come to light as they go through these processes. It really can help you build stronger connections with your faculty and your staff and the mentors that you have in your lives. Regardless of outcomes, you have these experiences on your resume that you can say that you've gone through. You may get stronger connections with other opportunities as a result of this. And again, you're going to hear all this from your panel. And then, of course, if you happen to go forward in these competitions and earn the benefits that come with it, language acquisition, the growth that comes from maybe an abroad opportunity, funding, of course. So there's a lot of great reasons why, all the way from the moment when you start the process, throughout. All right. So if this sounds appealing to you, how and when would you get started? We can't stress this part enough. There's never a moment that's too soon to get started, because a lot of these awards work in cycles. And again, it's commonly a myth that these are for later stages, right? So, a lot of times I'll hear from students, much like internships, oh, that's something you do when you're a little bit further along. That's not necessarily true for internships, and it's certainly not true for these types of awards. There are opportunities for you right from your first year of college all the way through. And again, it's about kind of building a culture in your own experience of having applied for and tried for these things, and they build upon themselves. So it's really great for you to start as early as you feel comfortable doing so. And again, there's opportunities that build upon those experiences. So whether that means connecting with your faculty, having student organizations and leadership opportunities, getting involved in public service and other roles, all of these things kind of build upon themselves. So meeting with myself or Jeannie, we can kind of help you think about the experiences that are going to make you a more competitive candidate for these opportunities, and also just have a more fulfilling experience while you're here at Rutgers Camden. What is an application or a foundation and a funder looking for in these awards? Probably listed most important to least important on the screen are a clear sense of purpose and future. We emphasize that very strongly because it's about your fit with the mission of the foundation, who's funding you, and about your fit for the goals that you say that you have for your future. So you have to be really clear about who you are and where you're going. So we spend a tremendous amount of time, and you'll hear that again from our panel of students and alumni, really working through your writing and your essays to kind of reflect and refine those goals. I often joke that I'm the why police for exactly that reason, because I'll ask you over and over again, but why? But why? You have to be really certain about the answers that you're putting down. They do, of course, want to know about your activities and your interests and your leadership and all of the things that you're doing. So that kind of falls into the middle. And very intentionally, we put grades last. Certainly there are awards out there, and you can think of some of them that are very popular that have a GPA requirement, right? That, that does exist, but you'd be surprised how many awards don't have a GPA requirement. A Fulbright U.S. student program, no GPA requirement. The Gilman, no GPA requirement. So there are plenty of awards that you can go after and do very well in the competitions without having any GPA requirements. So don't discount yourself before you've had a conversation with Janie and I about what you are a good fit for. Every application is going to look a little bit different, but commonly you should be prepared for a lot of writing. And again, that's going to vary, right? So some of the awards that you might apply for in your first and second year, knowing that you haven't had a ton of experiences, they're not going to ask for tons of essays, but they're going to want clear essays. And that's where we're going to help you with that. It's very common that you'll have to write some version of a personal statement, and that's where we excel in kind of helping you through that process. And it's a really good experience and a good process to go through in writing one of those, because you can always refine it and tweak it over and over again. And I'm sure you'll hear from our panel that they've reused those materials time and time again. I'm certain that they're going to tell you that. Your transcripts, again, even if you're only in your first or second year, they'll want to see what you're up to, what kind of classes you're taking. And it's not necessarily that they're emphasizing your grades, but they want to see, like, are you taking, what types of classes are you taking? What sorts of decisions are you making? So we can always tell a cool story with the decisions you make in your classes. Letters of recommendation, again, if you're only in your first and second year, you can definitely come to us and we can guide you through how to ask, who to ask. A lot of decision-making can go into that process, and we're here to support you. And then some awards will require a campus endorsement or a campus process. So for instance, the Marshall competition, even the Fulbright Award, we have a campus process, even though you don't require an endorsement necessarily. We're here to support you. And so again, you can speak with Jeannie and I about how to go through those processes. And in all cases, we're here to guide you and support you through that. Again, I think that that's been very clear. We are here to help. So we do everything from start to finish. We help you find your fit by reviewing opportunities that are a good match for what you want to do. We give you the expectations of the award that you're interested in or that we think is a good fit for what you're trying to accomplish. We will support you throughout the competition, through every stage, including refining your goals, helping you revise your materials, helping you interview or practice for an interview, providing tons of feedback and more. All right, so let's dive into some opportunities that we think are a good fit for our students. Specifically for our first and second years, we have the Fulbright Summer Institute, which gives our students the opportunity to travel in the summertime for 3 to 4 weeks to a UK Summer Institute, so a university that we partner with for just that short period of time. They are particularly looking for students who have very little experience abroad. This award does have a GPA requirement, so something to be mindful of. And they are looking for folks that have strong leadership potential or ambassadorial skills. That's a language thing that you'll see a lot of times on awards. And so this is a great opportunity for our first and second year students. The PPLC stands for the Public Policy and Leadership Conference, is something that will be opening up very soon and will be due this summer. So if you are a student who's in your first or second year, definitely keep an eye out for this. I'll be advertising it heavily. And it is a leadership conference that is held at Harvard every year. So if you are a student who's looking to gain more leadership experience or who is an active leader on campus in your first and second year, this is a 4-day conference that is fully funded, and it's a great kind of stepping stone or building block in your leadership here at Rutgers-Camden. Some more developmental opportunities include these service weekends that can be held both virtually and in person. And these, again, are just really great on the resume. They're great to make lots of different connections across the country. And they're kind of centered around topics in public service. But you can see that they kind of span all different genres. So everything from technology and healthcare, and they're really very attainable. So they're, again, kind of those building block opportunities for folks to go after. There's also this Wrangle 6-week summer enrichment program for anybody who's at least a sophomore or higher. And this one is a great 6-week summer program that will not only cover all of your expenses while you're there, but also has a $3,300 stipend, which is typically more than our students are making at many of their part-time jobs. So something to keep an eye on. This would be something that you would apply for. It'll open up in the fall and it's due in February each year. So at least sophomore standing. So something to keep an eye on for next year. For our students that kind of fall into the public service genres, and I love this idea of public service because it's pretty broad and we can think about it in a really wide way. We have the Truman Scholarship, one of my favorites. You'll hear from our panel speaking about it. Open to junior students or those who are kind of in the penultimate year of their studies. It's a $30,000 scholarship for graduate school. And again, public service can be defined in such a broad and wide way. And some of our panelists have applied for this, and they'll tell you how kind of going through that application process is something that really helps you think about your career goals and how you've been using your time on campus in a really broad and meaningful way. The UDAL scholarship also is open to those who are thinking about careers in public service, but it has a unique slant to it because it's specifically looking for folks who are committed to either environmental issues or Native American tribal policies in around those issues or healthcare issues. So a lot of our students on campus are specifically interested in environmental issues. And so we've had a really good group of students who've been considering the UDAL scholarship as well. So that's a $7,000 award open to either sophomore or junior level students. We also have the PBK Key into Public Service Scholarship. We have someone on the panel who won that award, $5,000 scholarship for people who are just active leaders on campus and who are really, again, kind of committed to that public service. So that's a great award as well. For our activists, we have the Humanity in Action Award, which kind of focuses on social justice and human rights. This gives you an opportunity to go abroad again for a short period of time in the summer. And the award locations do change each year. And we had a student who was a sophomore who won this opportunity a few years ago. So it's open to undergraduates, graduates, and also international and domestic students. The Davis Putter Award, also for students who are active in those areas, social and economic justice, renewable award up to $15,000. Undergraduate and graduate level researchers, we have everything from an REU, which is a summer funded opportunity, 10 to 12 weeks, usually $5,000 to $8,000 in scholarship money to go and do research. Barry Goldwater Scholarship for sophomores and juniors. This is usually a $7,500 scholarship, but again, very prestigious and would often be the leader into something like an NSF GRFP. This is for folks who are thinking about going into a research degree at the master's or doctoral level. We just had a student on our campus win this award. Very prestigious, very exciting. International experiences, there are plenty of these in what Jeannie and I advertise and work on. The Benjamin Gilman Scholarship is for Pell recipient students, which 50% of our students on campus are. You have to be a US citizen, you have to be receiving a Pell grant, but that's basically it. A lot of students on our campus are fantastic fits for this award. So if you're interested in going abroad for any length of time, including our own learning abroads, definitely hit us up about this opportunity. The Fulbright US Student Program, again, no GPA requirement. It's an amazing opportunity to have a academic year abroad experience, teaching in classrooms, doing academic research or even pursuing a graduate degree. And we have had, not only we had a winner a few years ago, but we currently have a winner this year so far, and we're still learning more. And we have applicants in the room who can talk to you about that as well. We have other language awards, including CLS, which would send you abroad for 10 to 12 weeks, or 8 to 10 weeks, I'm sorry, in the summertime to learn one of 15 different essential languages, a fully funded opportunity to have an amazing summer experience. Foreign awards will send you away for either a summer, semester, or entire academic year, fully funded again, where you get not only the language component, a broad opportunity, but you also get a government experience when you get back, because they partner you and give you an opportunity to have a job with the government after graduation. There's some awards that are for very targeted populations, including these global fellowships for student leaders of color. And one of our students in the room has applied for and won that award. So you can hear a little bit more about that. And the AAUW works with university women at all levels to provide funding for various different opportunities. So there's awards out there for very targeted populations, Hispanic students, individuals of LGBT populations. So, when you come and meet with us, we will ask you very specific questions and we'll guide you to maybe some awards that fit your particular criteria and help you pursue those opportunities. Awards for leaders. The Ronald Reagan Civic Leaders Fellows is a relatively new opportunity for undergraduates to have a virtual hybrid experience. So they send you to DC or California, fully funded short-term, because they expect you to be an undergrad and have that experience. And again, we have somebody in the room who can talk to you about that. Sanford Scholars is a $50,000 scholarship for graduate school. Knight Hennessy Scholars is a fully funded opportunity to send you to Stanford for any degree that you might possibly want. So these are some opportunities for those who kind of fall into that leadership bucket. So if you're building that trajectory all while you're in undergrad, these are things you might want to be thinking about. There's also the UK scholarships, which are commonly known, things like the Marshall and the Rhodes that we help our students apply for. The PD Soros Award, which will fund up to $90,000 for any student who is a new American, whether they themselves are an immigrant or they are the child of immigrants. And then the Schwartzman, which will send you to China for a one-year degree in global affairs. And we have an applicant in the room who can talk to you about that as well. And then there are some awards that, again, will partner you with careers in government service. So these are 3 awards, all of which prepare you for careers with the Foreign Service. So they pay for your master's degrees. And then following, you commit to working for the Foreign Service for a period of years in exchange for the funding that you receive for your graduate education, which for a lot of our students, they're thinking about these careers anyway. And so this is a wonderful opportunity to have your education paid for, to have the hands-on experiences, and then have a guaranteed position when you finish graduate education. And finally, some professional fellowships. There are just so many that we could have listed, but we very intentionally selected a few that represent our panel today. So we have professional fellowships that if you're thinking about kind of getting some experience in your field, maybe before you pursue additional graduate education or as a part of your graduate studies, these are some opportunities that you can get paid stipends for hands-on work. So we have the Bill Emerson Hunger Fellowship and the NYC Urban Fellows, and also the Robert Wood Johnson Health Policy Fellows. And all of our panelists can talk to you about these awards because they have all applied for and or won these awards. And so I'm kind of zipping through them because I want to get to the most important part of the day, which is our student stories. So I'm going to take one quick second to flash their faces on the screen for you in this format. So this is our panel of students and or alumni. We are joined today by a current graduate student, Melissa Thompson, current undergraduate student, Matthew Brodsky, and then 3 alumni panelists, Sid Johnson, Natan Shaughness, and Tanya Martinez. I'm going to stop my share for a second because I'm going to bring their beautiful faces onto the screen for you, and then we are going to go ahead and kickstart our student panel. So panelists, will you say hello?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
All right.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you guys so much. All right. So I'm trying to be very mindful of our time, and I want to dedicate the next part of this session to you all. So I'm going to lead us off with our very first question. So thinking back, and for some of you that may be way back or just a little bit back, what first interested you in applying for a fellowship, and how did you learn about the opportunity? Melissa, you're our most recent applicant. Do you want to kickstart that for us?
Yeah, so I'm Melissa Thompson. I'm a PhD student with the Department of Public Administration in I was interested because Jeannie, the lovely Jeannie, sent me the fellowship, and quite honestly, at the beginning of it, I didn't even think that it was really like possible for me to apply. So I'm thankful that I did, and it was of interest to me because it really allowed me to dive deep into my research interests, and that's like super relevant for me as a first year PhD student in terms of trying to think through what I want my dissertation to be about, and it's been super formative and helpful for me.
Thank you. Natan, I think you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, happy to go next. So I do have to go a bit further back because it's been a little bit of time since I applied. I think for me, so I wanted to do something after I graduate, before going into, graduate school, which I'm not in, spoiler alert, or a job. But I wanted to have some sort of gap year in between. And there are tons of, public service fellowships, which is something that I wanted to do. And so I did a little bit of research online. I saw that there were some, students that had applied to different things and got them at Rutgers Camden, but also at Rutgers University in general. And so that was kind of what sparked that initial interest, and can certainly talk more about it later.
I can go next. Hi, my name is Sydney Johnson. I'm a Rutgers alumni, and I currently work at Congress, which I mentioned because I never would have gotten without Laura's help and without the fellowships I was awarded. But Laura came to a student government meeting, and that's how I met Laura, and we've had a wonderful relationship over the past 2 or 3 years, is it now? And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I started out with Fulbright because I knew I wanted to travel, but I've applied for so many different things, and it led me to where I am now, which I'm also so happy to talk about later on.
Thanks, Sid.
I can go next. Right now, I am currently in my Urban Fellows program, which I know is on the screen, but it's the fellowship that I applied and got. So I'm really excited about that. I graduated last year. And the reason that I was interested in fellowships because I was in like my junior/senior year, that like in between. And I really want to go to law school, but I just didn't have time to study while also trying to do my thesis, while also trying to like navigate all the other things I had on my plate. I had 2 jobs. I had just a ton of things I was doing for the school, like for student orgs and whatnot. And so I just didn't have time to actually study. And that was really frustrating for me that because of the fact that I need to work and I need to do that, like I can't take the time. So I want to take a gap year, and now I'm wanting to take about 2 to 3 more years because I've learned so much from the fellowship and working in government that I want to extend that. But essentially, I was looking into fellowships because it's an opportunity to learn and to be able to get that guidance and be paired with people who are in the same boat as you. A lot of other students that I am in the group with also were in the exact same boat as me, where they had to work and they were committed to so much, and they're taking the time now to study. And so there's like a little like law school group chat that we're all in, and we're supporting each other. And so that was mainly like my route and why I decided to do a fellowship.
All right, I think I'm all that remains, so I can go next. So I didn't know much about fellowships or anything at all until one day I was in one of my advisor meetings with Laura, because she was my honors college advisor at the time. And we were just talking, and she pointed out Fulbright and Wrangle. So those were the first 2 I applied to because I had this distinct interest in traveling, like going abroad, and also kind of foreign policy areas. So those were the first two I applied to. And they've really been a huge help to me figuring out what I want to do. Similar to Tanya, I went in with this whole law school idea, and I have also had zero time to study for law school because I do a lot. But specifically with Truman, when I applied for the Truman application that Laura convinced me to do after some hesitancy on my end, helped me kind of realize more about what I wanted to do with myself. And that's really been the most eye-opening experience for me in applying to all these fellowships, is not always the fact that I don't always get them, but the fact that it's helped me, further the understanding of what I want to do with my life, with my future, and help me just kind of figure that all out. And with obviously the great guidance of Laura.
Thanks, Matt. You've done a lot of the hard work yourself. So in these processes, I think that it's not uncommon for our students or any student who is applying for these awards to think like, well, she's not talking to me when she's given this presentation. Melissa said that, like, well, I'm not, a good fit for this. And so we know that there's definitely a level of intimidation, right? When, you're presented with these ideas. And even if you have someone like Jeannie or myself saying, no, like, we mean you, like, we think this is good for you. So can you talk about that level of intimidation that you might feel, and how you kind of fight through that, persevere, and what, coming out on the other side might feel like? So who wants to kick that off?
I am very passionate about this question, so if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to go first. I have very much struggled with these applications. Laura has heard me pour my heart out and cry many times over these applications. And even now, I would say I live currently in DC, and sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I shouldn't be here. I should be back in New Jersey. But something I heard when I was here is that you're on the right path when you keep on hearing yes. And when you keep on, even if something doesn't work out, which I've had things not work out, there are other things that come up, and it might mean that it's not for you at that time. And there might be something else in the works, which happened to me, that is even better and even better fitted for you. I would say a large part of my motivation is also for all the people who told me I couldn't, and even myself telling me I couldn't. It taught me to keep on fighting, and these fellowships have done a component of teaching me my worth and what I am deserving of, and that I am worthy. So that is a very big, powerful lesson I have been able to learn while applying for all of these things.
I can go next because I can speak specifically to when I applied to Truman, because I was very intimidated by the Truman application at first, going through previous winners, finalists, stuff like that. And I think similar to what was just mentioned, you sometimes can suffer with a lot of imposter syndrome when reading all of that and thinking like, there is no way I should be applying to that. Look at like all these other great things. Like, how in the world should I even stand a chance of getting that? And I had to kind of work my way out of that mindset. And there was a lot of help from Laura and other people I knew to kind of guide me on that path, and kind of realize that it's not always about just getting it. Like, that's obviously the end goal, the main goal, but there's so much more that comes with that. And you realize so much about yourself. And through those other application processes, I have found other things similar to Sydney, that there's these other doors that kind of open after maybe one thing doesn't go your way, something else just comes knocking at your door, and it just works so much better for you. I didn't get Truman, but I'm going to be in DC for Eagleton this year, and I couldn't be happier. So one thing got rejected me. I've had so many other things, and the only way you can do that is to not give up and just keep applying, because you know your worth and you know your value, and you just have to keep going for that and not really giving up.
I'm going to carbon copy what Matthew said, because it's sort of what I was going to say as well, but I'll just say it in slightly different words. Imposter syndrome is so real, y'all. I bet everyone here on the panel or not has faced it at some point, or maybe is currently facing it. And I'd be surprised if, think about like whoever that leader is that you look up to, that they haven't had it or are even currently having it right now. Like some of the biggest leaders that, you're motivated by. So real, so normal. And it's not necessarily about trying to overcome it because that's a really hard thing to do. But it's about realizing that it's there and not letting it stop you from applying. I remember I had a conversation with a friend at college and they were surprised because they were also applying for different things. They were surprised to hear, oh, you've applied to this and you've applied to that. Like they thought I only just applied and got it every time. And the reality is that's not what happened. I was applying over and over again to all sorts of things and only got a few, but it's those few that really made a difference for me. And the ones that I didn't get were also, so important because that's really how I learned about what it is that I actually want and, what a good direction is for me in my career. So absolutely, it's a normal thing to feel that way, but just know that, us on the panel and other folks have felt it, and we got things as well, and so y'all can too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I'm going to jump into and kind of echo that. And I think the important thing for me has just been remembering, like, we all have it, or the majority. So like the people that you're applying with also probably have it. So it's worth you applying. And for me, that was like super helpful for me because especially so there are very few scholars of color in my field. And for me, it was like internalizing that in terms of like, there are not a lot of people that look like me with PhDs in this field. So I think it was also a lot of what I put on myself, not even what the outcome would be. So I guess for me, it was, or I guess the goal and what I'm committing to now is like to not even put doubt on the table, because it's like, regardless of the outcome, me doing that work was super beneficial and rewarding. And yeah, I think when I think about it like that, I can check my fear, my imposter syndrome, and just do it because I have a lot to offer and bring in, and it's valid.
Yeah, I'm gonna also just continue building on that. I think it's such a good point. I faced imposter syndrome. I've felt really intimidated as well. And I think especially when you're in a space that isn't designed for you, like you know that there's a history there that was predominantly white and men, and the space hasn't been fully designed for people of color or women. And I remember hearing during a seminar speaker that came in from Goldman Sachs. They're like the president of like the foundation of Goldman Sachs, and they were talking to us, and she was saying that like she doesn't feel imposter syndrome, and that shocked me. I was like, what? Because she has a different mindset on it. Her mindset is, I need to be in the room. There is not a single person of color in this room. I need to be there to make sure that that's being heard. And so I thought that was like a really valuable thing to think about, is in this context, if you're not seeing people that have like your story, that have your background, and they're not in the room, push to be in the room, because that's so valuable to everyone that's involved. And so I think just by trying to actively change that mindset and remind yourself about that, that's really helpful when you're in this space.
I love that. And, I know that both Jeannie and I could go on about the stories that we hear from our students. And I would just say that, like, our students, like, every story deserves to be told and be heard, right? Because we hear them and we're like, wait, you have to tell somebody this, because I think a lot of our students, they discount their story because they don't see themselves as being like, oh, well, someone else has told that already. And we're like, no, wait, this is amazing. And so I love that you said, like, your story, it matters, it's important. So thank you for saying that. I have so many questions written down that I want to kind of prioritize. So I'm going to kind of put these out of order, but thinking back to your own experiences, what is something actionable that you would advise someone who's thinking about kind of pursuing the paths that you all have taken? What advice would you give them to do today that might put them in a better position to pursue these opportunities?
I can jump in really quickly. So as a grad student, a big part of our work is like reading, but I would say like read. like for me, it was about finding the language. Like, what am I saying? What am I feeling? What am I like? What am I trying to get out? And reading has really been helpful, and honestly exploring like readings from different genres and fields that may not seem traditional to like your art, but just trying to find that language and not stopping until you do, because it's out there, or there's a path that's being charted that you can kind of hop on and like almost for me it was like finding myself in the literature was super, super helpful.
I can jump in next because it kind of pairs well in a sense, because I was thinking my first thought was like writing and journaling about what you want. And that I feel like is a good parallel to that because to me, it's all about self-discovery. You know, I think really being thoughtful about what you want in your future is something that's going to go a long way whenever you're applying. And I think for some of the opportunities that I had, I went back to old journal entries to think about what I had been thinking about before and kind of like using some of that to get started on because I would journal my internship experiences, and so that was able to then translate to the application. But the other thing I think in regards to that self-discovery is also building your social capital, and I think just essentially like the networking piece and like talking to people, because I think that as soon as you talk to someone that's in a field that you think you want and then you hear about their life and their day-to-day, you're like, oof, I don't know if I want that. And then you're like at a loss, but then it's all about figuring out what that next path that you think is the best fit for you looks like. So those are like the main two that I would suggest.
I'm going to echo that. I really have to stop going after other people and just stealing their words. First of all, if you are feeling stressed about this, take a deep breath. That's the first thing that I'd say, and know that you'll be okay. And then second of all, yeah, talk to people. And it doesn't have to be people that are really high level in their careers. That's all great, but it could literally be someone that graduated last year or someone that's even, in the university now and they just applied to some of these things and they maybe got something. And learn about their experience, learn about what drives them, learn about what their, hopes and dreams are when it comes to their career. And then, like Tanya mentioned, learn about their day-to-day and what that looks like if you are speaking with someone that's in the workplace. And know that just because they tell you something doesn't mean that it's necessarily true for you. It's just true for them. But it is helpful to hear their perspective and to hear other people's perspectives, like talking to multiple people within that field, because then you start to see patterns and that sort of thing. So I would definitely say those two things: is just take a deep breath, you'll be okay, but definitely talk to people because you can learn so much about their viewpoints in life, and ultimately take what you want from that and apply it to yours.
So I'm also gonna echo, or sort of echo. It's just sad. I feel the same way right now. I went too late, and all the good points were taking. Um, but I also think when it comes to talking, obviously talking, people in similar fields as you, similar like age range. But I also did when I was going through a lot of this process. I was talking to people who just knew me well, like closest friends, people I've trusted with a lot of like advice or needed help with. So they knew me really well. So I'd go to them and I would just kind of spitball my thought process when I'm applying to these. And they would kind of be able to just, I don't know, read me really well and kind of help me figure out like why I'm doing something more than sometimes I'll realize myself. So I also think I think it just boils down to just talk to people, because when I talk personally, like I'm able to just kind of realize what I'm saying, if I really feel it or if I really don't. So when I'm talking to other people, it just helps me realize that. So I just want to add on to that.
I'm gonna say something totally different, straight off the curve. Something Laura always says to me is I have a very unique application because I'm just kind of all over the place. One of my majors is an art major, theater, and so I would say having a diversity of experiences. So I have some government experience. I have some research experience, I have some community work, and tweak my application to all sorts of different things and apply for a lot more things because I have a diversity of experiences. So I would say, even if it's something you're interested in and you're like, I'm not necessarily sure this would help my say.
Perfect. Thank you, Sid. Okay, so with a few minutes to go, I'm going to kind of go to my last question and sort of like summarize all of your experiences. So I know that most of you have applied for a multitude of awards, depending on how long you've been doing this. And you've had some wins. Some of you are current fellows in different positions and some losses along the way. And so I want you to kind of speak to your audience thinking like, given your positions and all these different experiences that you've had, how do you define success now? I think Matthew said at one point, you know, like we have this one objective, right? And this is the goal in one sense, but then there's other goals along the way. So thinking about that, what would you tell students, you know, about how you now frame success, like that idea of it? What is a win to you today?
I think I'll hop in first so that I don't follow the same pattern that I was doing earlier. For me, success is failing over and over and over again, because that just means that you're trying again and you're not giving up and you're learning in the process. So that to me what, you know, defines success.
It's tricky. Tanya was thinking about it.
Sid, you can go first.
Okay, so I would say what I used to say was success would be like the things on your resume, but now I say it's all the other things. So I can say that I love what I do. I love the members I work with. I love my friends, the people around me. I love the city I'm in. That's how I know I'm successful, because I'm happy where I am. My job title doesn't matter to me anymore, even though it's a pretty cool job title. Everything around me is what makes me successful.
Excellent.
Success for me is that I'm growing in some capacity. And I think that you define that for yourself. And so if your goal, like that you establish for yourself, is that you want to, you know, I don't know, if you want to like have like a better work-life balance of like whatever it is, whether it's like while you're in school and like you want to make sure that you're really taking time for family, for friends. If that's what success looks for you and you're able to navigate and do both sides successfully, and then like that essentially is success for me, because you're growing and being able to do whatever it is that you want to do. And so that to me is just like, as long as I'm growing and I'm developing and I'm have a goal in mind and I'm trying to work towards achieving that goal, I think that I'm successful.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think for me, going through all these applications, my success has always been, you know, how I have felt after the whole experience. So, and I think similar to what Tanya said, what my goals were. So my goal for Truman was to, you know, figure out what I really wanted to do, because I wasn't dead set. And my goals for Fulbright or Wrangle is just to try. And I came out of those feeling completely different than I did going into that. And I felt better about myself, and I felt better about this situation I was in or where I was going towards life. So I think if you come out and, you know, that experience in general had some benefit to you, you learned something, you gained something, or you won something. I think that's what determines success. It's how you feel coming out of that. It's how the experience has changed you in some way. And if it's changed you in a way that you find beneficial, I think you've come out successful.
Yeah, I was going to go last, so I didn't stress anyone out in terms of repeating answers. But I wanted to, so Maya Angelou has a quote where she says, success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. And I think I define success in that way, in terms of I want to feel like I'm honoring myself in my path, and trusting the process. If this door doesn't open, that means that that door wasn't the one I was supposed to walk through at this moment. And that's okay. And one thing I've been like really holding to is like, I want to be in places where I'm celebrated, not tolerated. So if the door doesn't open, like, I don't want to go through it. So for me, success is just honoring that in myself and realizing like what's for me is for me. And I want to make sure that I'm honoring my best and highest self and trust the process.
We love that. We celebrate you. We celebrate all of you here. Thank you so much for those excellent mindsets, as Natan put in the chat. That's right. So with all of that great wisdom, I want to take the last couple minutes of this time to open it up to any of our participants to ask questions. This might also be a great time for the panel to share some of their journey more kind of candidly, like all of the different experiences you've had, where you are today. I know that we just sort of jumped right in, but you all have had many winding roads. So if you want as a participant in the room to either unmute yourself and ask a question or pop that into the chat, we are here for it. So, and if not, I'm sure that this group will gladly share anything with you. So feel free. Are there questions? Who wants to tell us about your current jobs?
Hey, Tanya, your job is interesting. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I can. Laura, would you like me to talk about like just the journey here or like?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I can try and share quickly. Basically, since I was like 15, I've been an advocate for immigrant rights. And so that path for me has always been about how can I best serve the immigrant population. And have continued to change how I view it, from wanting to be a direct lawyer to then wanting to do something more policy, then wanting to still do a law degree while doing something a little bit more in the advocacy side. And it's just continued to shift and change, which I think is great because that means I'm getting more clarity of what it is exactly that I want to do. And, right now I'm in the New York City Small Business Services. And so I'm in the executive office where I work really closely with the commissioner. And I have gone to really cool events. I went to the opening of like the Jim Beam relocation to like New York City, which was like really cool. I've like, been in a lot of really awesome events, but then what to me has been like one of my favorite projects is working on improving language access within the agency. That to me has been just so rewarding because I'm working with immigrant-based organizations to then be able to review our documents and be able to really help and support to make sure that our communities know what services we offer and that it's really clear. I do all kinds of outreach where I'm going to these different parts of the New York City. I've gone to all 5 boroughs to just talk with different communities. I've been to like Corona, which is considered like a little like mix of different communities from the Latin American culture, and everyone there speaks Spanish. And I'm just able to then tell them about the services that we offer, go door to door to different businesses and make sure that they know that we're here. So that to me has been like really rewarding because now I'm able to understand what, immigrant businesses need. And so I recently got offered a job to stay on. And so we're really excited to be able to continue serving New York City. And eventually I want to pivot that to a law degree. But I applied to a ton of fellowships. I got rejected by a few. And that to me was okay because I feel like I'm really loving where I'm at now.
Thanks so much for sharing. How about Natan? You want to share your journey?
Sure. So I am passionate about homelessness and addressing housing insecurity as well. And that passion started just a little bit before college. I had a chance to speak with someone experiencing homelessness, and to be honest, because of the way that just society is structured in America, it's awful for many reasons beyond this. But our where we live is so segregated. So where I was at, which was like middle class families, there weren't really any people experiencing homelessness. So I hadn't had a whole lot of chance to speak with people that don't have a home when I was growing up. But I did prior to college, and kind of learned a lot about his story and a lot about what's wrong with the system. And I knew that I wanted to somehow work on that, somehow address that when I got to college. So, fast forward a little bit, I got a job at a local homeless shelter, and then fast forward a bit more, I got into the Bill Emerson National Hunger Fellowship, which is out of the Congressional Hunger Center. It's a really, really cool experience. So they do a half a year doing policy advocacy, and then another half year doing direct service. And so I was placed first in Portland, Oregon, in an organization called Welcome Home, and I was doing research on housing policy in the area. And then I was placed at the National Homelessness Law Center in Washington, D.C., where I was helping to coordinate a collective of people that are living in their vehicles and kind of like protecting their rights, legally speaking, through advocacy. So that was a really, really cool experience. Because of the fellowship, I got the current job that I'm at because we are working. So I'm at ICF, the consulting agency, and I'm doing all sorts of different projects, but one of them is working with Oregon on a task force on racial disparities of homelessness. And because of my experience working in Portland, Oregon, they were really excited about that. And so that's why I got hired at the job here. And I'm really, really loving it so far, learning a ton from really cool people, experienced people. And I think what makes this cool is that um, aside from the fact that there's just so much knowledge, the knowledge comes from different directions and different experiences. So we do have people that have lived expertise, of homelessness, but not just. It's just a variety of experiences and backgrounds. So it's been a really rewarding experience, and like I said, I don't think I would have gotten it unless I had done that fellowship first. So.
Thanks so much.
Mhm.
If you guys don't mind, I had a question come in, and it's about what make somebody competitive for a fellowship who has sort of non-traditional experiences in like campus activities and leadership roles, but who also has a lot of life responsibilities. So for those of you who are either in or have had these fellowship experiences or who have had other life experiences, what advice would you have for somebody who maybe doesn't have a lot of time to have those traditional things that would make them stand out in an application, either, from your peer cohorts or other advice that you have?
I can jump in first. What I'm honestly think is that as long as you know the direction that you want to go and you can convey that in application, that's what that's what the reader wants to hear, and that's what they want to know, that someone is committed and driven to do these things, and then explaining what situation you're in. Because if it's a right fit in that fellowship, they are going to want you because they've had those similar experiences. They know what it's like. And so I know, for like example, the Urban Fellows program, the current cohort chooses the next cohort. They read through applications. And so what we looked for, it wasn't about like who is just like, who stands out in terms of extracurricular activities. It's oftentimes about what's their story. Who are they? Why is it that they want to serve New York City? Why is it that they want to help people? And if you can convey that and you truly believe that and can showcase that, then I think that you're going to be a competitive applicant.
Thanks, Tanya.
I so agree with that. Similar situation in the fellowship that I was in, where we don't choose, but we help in choosing. And those are the kind of things that in that fellowship they were looking for as well. It's really cool because I think that fellowships kind of take the best of both worlds of being a student and being, employed. And by that, I mean that you get money. That's the nice part about having a job. But you also get to enrich your experiences and get to develop, your passions and develop your professional experience. And when you're at the university, you have all these different people that are invested in you and they want to support you. And as a student, it's so easy to reach out to an alum and ask these questions. It's the same thing in the fellowship. You have all these people that are invested in you. People are excited to talk to you because you're someone that's early in their career, and they want to hear more about your passions, and they want to kind of like give you advice and support you. But you also get money. So I would echo what Tanya said. Going back to the question that it doesn't matter what experiences you bring before, as long as you have that passion that people would want to be invested in you because you have that passion and that drive.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm also looking at Sid because I'm thinking of an award like the Civic Leaders Fellowship, which was sort of a newer and sort of intentionally designed for like a developing leader. So maybe you could talk about something like that.
Yeah, so I was a part of the inaugural class. It's for underclassmen, but I did it as an alumni. Don't tell them. But you can get, so I would consider civic leaders like smaller award, like a build-up award. So you can apply for these awards that aren't as competitive, that might be easier to get to help develop your resume and develop you as a leader. The people at the Ronald Reagan Institute wrote my recommendation letters for the White House internship, and for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, which is why I originally came down here for DC. So not only do you get that experience, but you also get to make connections with people who can do things like send you new fellowships or be recommenders, things like that.
Thanks so much. And that specific fellowship, the Ronald Reagan Civic Leaders, was also a hybrid opportunity. So a lot of the time Sid was right at home in New Jersey, and then the opportunities that they went to DC were short-term and were funded. So for somebody who does have a busy full life, who is a student and who has outside obligations, for a lot of people, these things can work around those things. So not every fellowship will be full-time and demand your full attention. So there's lots of different awards. Matthew and I are always sending emails back and forth to each other for full-time or part-time, hybrid, virtual awards. So there's a lot out there in the landscape that can kind of fit your lifestyle and your needs depending on the level that you're at. So I hope that helped answer the question that was posed. I know we are over time. However, we do still have some participants in the room. So are there any other questions that we can answer for you? Do our members of the panel want to share their contact information so that folks who maybe want to hear a little bit more about either your individual journeys or where you are today, or for the 2 students that we still have here on campus, maybe connect with you and learn a little bit more about your programs of study or the things that you're working on currently? We'd love to share that out. All this good contact information is kind of loading into the chat. Are there any other questions we can answer for you folks, or? All right. Well, we thank you for your time on a Friday afternoon. We thank our panelists so much for their time. We love seeing you guys, especially when our alums come back and join us. It is nothing but a pleasure, and thank you all so much for being here, and we hope that you will be in touch with us again soon.
Thank you all.
Thank you.